The gunshot wound in Finn Ryder's leg throbbed with every step as he limped through the dusty streets of Silverwood, Colorado. A constant reminder that his days of quick draws and wild pursuits were over, just like his dancing days had ended long before he'd ever put on a badge. It was 1879, and the West was changing, becoming less wild with each passing year, much like the former deputy marshal himself. The doctor had done what he could, digging the bullet out and stitching him up, but he'd been blunt. "You'll walk again, Ryder, but you'll never ride like before. Time to find yourself a different life." Those words had echoed in Finn's head for weeks as he'd made his slow, painful journey north from Santa Fe, leaving behind his badge and the only life he'd known since the war. Silverwood wasn't his first choice. It wasn't a choice at all, really. It was simply where his money and strength had run out. The mining boomtown nestled in the Colorado mountains was bustling enough that a man might find work, yet small enough that folks might not have heard about the deputy marshal who'd been shot by the very outlaw he was trying to bring in. The humiliation of that failure stung worse than the wound itself. Finn pushed open the door of the Silverwood Hotel, leaning heavily on his walking stick. The lobby was modest but clean, with a polished wooden counter and a stern-looking clerk who eyed him suspiciously. "Room for the night," Finn said, placing a few coins on the counter. "And information, if you're willing." The clerk scooped up the money and slid a key across. "Room 4, top of the stairs. Information depends on what you're asking." "Work," Finn said simply. For a man who can't stand long but knows his way around a ledger. It wasn't entirely true his experience with numbers was limited to counting cards and bullets, but he'd learned to read and write better than most, and he couldn't exactly advertise his real skills, tracking outlaws and shooting straight. The clerk snorted. "Try the White Lily. Miss Lowell's always looking for help, especially with her books. She's too busy with those orphans of hers to keep proper accounts." Finn nodded his thanks and made his slow ascent to his room. It was Spartan: a bed, a washstand, and a chair, but it was clean. He lowered himself carefully onto the edge of the bed, removed his hat, and ran a hand through his dark hair, feeling every one of his 32 years and then some. The White Lily, as it turned out, was not what Finn had expected. It wasn't a saloon or a brothel, but a bakery with a cheery white painted facade and the scent of fresh bread wafting through its open door. A bell jingled as he entered, and he found himself in a warm, flower-dusted haven that smelled of cinnamon and vanilla. "Be right with you," called a woman's voice from the back. Finn stood awkwardly, his hands resting on his walking stick, feeling out of place among the display cases of carefully arranged pastries and cakes. He'd spent the last decade in saloons, jails, and on horseback, not in places that smelled like a memory of home. When she emerged from the back room, wiping flour-covered hands on her apron, Finn's first thought was that Lily Lowell didn't look like she belonged in a rough-and-tumble mining town either. She had honey blonde hair pulled back in a practical bun, though tendrils had escaped to frame her face. Her eyes were a clear, intelligent blue that assessed him quickly, taking in his trail-worn clothes, the walking stick, and the stiffness in his posture. "Welcome to the White Lily," she said with a smile that transformed her pretty face into something that made Finn's chest tighten inexplicably. "What can I get for you today?" "I'm not here for bread, madam," Finn said, removing his hat. "I heard you might be looking for help with your books." Her smile faltered slightly. "Who told you that?" Hotel clerk. "Said you were too busy with orphans to keep proper accounts." She laughed then, a sound so unexpected and genuine that Finn found himself almost smiling in response. "Well, Mr. Ryder, Finn Ryder, Mr. Ryder, Jenkins at the hotel has a loose tongue and a tendency to exaggerate. I do take in children who need a place now and then, but I wouldn't call them orphans exactly, and my books." She sighed. "Well, they could use some attention, that's true enough." A door at the back opened, and a young boy of perhaps 10 came barreling through, followed by a girl a few years older who was trying to catch him. "Tommy, give it back," the girl called. "Miss Lily, Emma's being mean again," the boy complained, darting behind Lily. Lily caught him gently by the shoulders. "Tommy, whatever you took from Emma, please return it. Emma, take a breath and tell me what happened." As the children explained their squabble over a hair ribbon, Finn watched Lily handle them with a mix of firmness and kindness that spoke of experience. When the dispute was settled and the children sent back to their chores, she turned back to him with an apologetic smile. "As you can see, Mr. Ryder, I do have my hands full. The bakery supports us all, but I'll admit the accounts have suffered. Do you have experience with bookkeeping?" Finn hesitated. "Some," he said, not quite meeting her eyes. "I can read and figure well enough. I'm a quick study." She studied him for a moment, her gaze lingering on his walking stick and the way he favored his right leg. "Were you in the war, Mr. Ryder?" The question caught him off guard. "Yes, madam, Confederate side, though I was young. Too young, really," she nodded. "My brother fought for the Union. He came back different too," she gestured to his leg. "Recent? Couple months back, bullet. Doctor says I'll never ride the same." Something in her expression softened. "Well, Mr. Ryder, I can't pay much, but I do need help. Not just with the books, if I'm honest. I need someone to help with deliveries, heavy lifting when flour comes in, that sort of thing." "I can manage," he said, straightening as much as his injury would allow. "I'm stronger than I look right now." She smiled again, and this time it reached her eyes. "I don't doubt it. Can you start tomorrow, 8 in the morning, after the first batch of bread is out?" And just like that, Finn Ryder, former Confederate soldier and Deputy U.S. Marshal, found himself employed by a baker with unruly ledgers and a house full of children. The next morning arrived with a crispness in the air that hinted at the approaching autumn. Finn arrived at the White Lily at exactly 8, having spent the night wondering what had possessed him to take a job he was in no way qualified for. But the alternative, moving on with dwindling funds and no prospects, was worse. The bakery was already bustling when he arrived. Lily worked the counter, serving customers with a smile and easy conversation, while a teenage girl Finn hadn't seen the day before wrapped purchases in brown paper. Lily spotted him and waved him toward the back room. "Good morning, Mr. Ryder. Come on through, I'll show you where everything is." The back of the bakery was warm from the large brick ovens. A young man was pulling trays of bread out with long wooden paddles, his forearms dusted with flour. He nodded at Finn but didn't pause in his work. "That's Daniel," Lily explained. "He's been with me for 2 years now. Was living on the streets of Denver when I found him. Now he's the best baker in Colorado, after me, of course." Daniel grinned at that. "She's only saying that because she pays my wages." "And don't you forget it," Lily replied with a laugh. She led Finn through to a small office off the kitchen. It was cramped, with a desk piled high with papers, ledgers stacked haphazardly on shelves, and various receipts pinned to the walls. "This," she said with a rueful gesture, "is my failure as a businesswoman. I can bake a loaf that will make you weep, Mr. Ryder, but numbers have never been my friend." Finn surveyed the chaos with growing alarm. "I see. I'll leave you to it," she said cheerfully. "Daniel will bring you coffee and I'll check on you later. Feel free to ask questions, though I might not have answers." With that, she was gone in a swirl of skirts and the scent of vanilla. Finn lowered himself carefully into the chair, set his walking stick against the desk, and took a deep breath. Then he pulled the nearest ledger toward him and opened it. 3 hours later, his head was pounding, and his respect for Lily Lowell had increased tenfold. Despite the chaos of her bookkeeping system, she'd somehow kept the bakery afloat for 5 years. From what he could piece together, she not only supported herself and at least 4 children who weren't hers by birth, but also managed to put aside a modest sum each month. A soft knock interrupted his concentration, and Lily appeared with a plate of bread and cheese. "Thought you might be hungry," she said, placing it on the one clear corner of the desk. "How bad is it?" Finn sat back, rubbing his eyes. "It's interesting. You're doing better than your records suggest." She perched on the edge of the desk, her expression curious. "What do you mean?" "Your profit margin is higher than you're accounting for. You're not charging enough for some items and not tracking all your expenses properly." She looked surprised. "So I'm making more money than I thought." "Yes, but you're also spending more than you realize. It balances out more or less. But with better tracking, you could probably increase your savings." Lily nodded thoughtfully. "That would be helpful. I've been trying to put aside enough to expand the bakery, maybe add a proper dining area." Finn reached for the bread, suddenly aware of how hungry he was. He took a bite and couldn't hold back a sound of appreciation. The bread was perfect, crusty on the outside, soft within, with just the right amount of salt. Lily smiled at his reaction. "See, I told you I know my bread." "Yes, madam, you certainly do." "Lily," she corrected gently. "If we're going to be working together, Mr. Ryder, I think we can dispense with the formalities." "Finn," he replied. "Most folks just call me Finn," she nodded. "Finn it is." She stood up, smoothing her apron. "When you're ready, I'll show you the delivery cart. We have orders going to the hotel and the mining office this afternoon." As promised, after lunch Lily led Finn to a small covered cart at the back of the bakery. It was well built but showing signs of wear, with a single horse and aging chestnut gelding already hitched and waiting. "This is Chester," Lily said, patting the horse's neck. "He knows the routes better than I do. Just follow his lead and you'll be fine." Finn eyed the cart dubiously. Getting up onto the bench would be a challenge with his stiff leg. As if reading his thoughts, Lily pointed to a small step attached to the side. "Daniel added that for me. I'm not as tall as you, but it helps." With some effort and more pain than he wanted to admit, Finn managed to haul himself onto the bench. Lily handed him a list of deliveries and a basket filled with carefully wrapped packages. "Just mark off each one as you deliver it. No rush. Chester doesn't believe in hurrying anyway." As predicted, Chester ambled through the streets of Silverwood at his own deliberate pace. The first delivery was to the hotel, where the clerk who directed Finn to the White Lily raised his eyebrows at seeing the former deputy now delivering bread, but made no comment. The mining office was next, followed by 3 private homes. At each stop, Finn was received with curiosity and friendly conversation. It became clear that Lily Lowell was well-liked and respected in Silverwood. At the final house, a grand affair on the edge of town, Finn was met by a stern-looking woman who introduced herself as Mrs. Thornton. "You're new," she observed, inspecting the package of pastries with a critical eye. "Yes, madam, just started today." "What happened to that girl, the one with the freckles?" "I'm afraid I don't know. I'm just filling in where Miss Lowell needs me," Mrs. Thornton sniffed. "Well, tell her these are for the Ladies' Aid Society meeting this evening. We expect them to be fresh." "They came out of the oven this morning, madam," Finn assured her, trying to keep his tone respectful despite the woman's condescension. "See that you handle them carefully, then. We don't want them jostled." With that, she closed the door firmly. By the time Finn returned to the bakery, the afternoon sun was casting long shadows, and his leg was throbbing insistently. He managed to unhitch Chester and lead him to the small stable behind the bakery, but the process of unsaddling the horse left him sweating and pale. When he limped back into the bakery's kitchen, Lily took one look at him and pointed to a chair. "Sit," she commanded. "You've overdone it." "I'm fine," Finn protested weakly, but he sank into the offered chair with poorly concealed relief. Lily disappeared briefly and returned with a cup of something that steamed. "Willow bark tea, it'll help with the pain." Finn accepted the cup, surprised. "How did you know?" "My brother," she said simply. "When his wounds pained him, he'd get the same look you have now, proud and stubborn and hurting too much to hide it properly." Finn sipped the bitter tea, watching as Lily moved around the kitchen, preparing for the next day's baking. Daniel had gone home, and the children Finn had seen earlier were setting the table in a room adjacent to the kitchen. It was clearly where they ate their meals, a cozy space with a large wooden table and mismatched chairs. "You live above the bakery?" Finn asked. Lily nodded. "There's a good-sized apartment upstairs, plenty of room for all of us, though it gets a bit crowded on laundry day." "How many children do you have here?" "Currently 4, she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "Tommy and Emma, who you met yesterday. Then there's Sarah, who's 16 and helps in the shop, and Michael, who's 12 and convinced he's already a man." "All orphans?" Lily hesitated. "Not exactly. Tommy's mother died in childbirth, and his father couldn't care for a baby alone. Emma's parents sent her to live with an aunt who died last year. Sarah and Michael, their stories are theirs to tell." "And you took them all in," Finn said, not bothering to hide the admiration in his voice. Lily shrugged. "What else was I to do? Leave them to fend for themselves?" She smiled slightly. "Besides, they earn their keep. Who do you think delivers all those early morning orders while I'm baking?" The children came spilling into the kitchen then, laughing and arguing in the way of siblings everywhere. They stopped short at the sight of Finn. "Children, this is Mr. Ryder," Lily introduced. "He'll be helping with deliveries and the books." They regarded him with the frank curiosity of youth. Tommy was the first to approach, eyeing Finn's walking stick. "Were you shot, like in a gunfight?" "Tommy," Lily scolded. "It's all right," Finn said. "Yes, I was shot, not in a gunfight, though." "Were you a soldier?" This from Michael, his eyes wide. "A long time ago," Finn admitted. "More recently, I was a lawman." This revelation caused an excited stir among the children, and Finn soon found himself fielding questions about outlaws and shootouts. He answered carefully, aware of Lily's watchful presence, downplaying the violence that had been a regular part of his life. "That's enough questions for now," Lily finally interrupted. "Mr. Ryder needs to rest, and you all have chores to finish." The children dispersed reluctantly, and Finn made to stand. "I should get back to the hotel." Lily placed a hand on his shoulder, gently but firmly keeping him seated. "Not yet, you'll stay for supper, I insist." Too tired to argue, Finn found himself at the table with Lily and her makeshift family, eating a simple but delicious meal of stew and fresh bread. The conversation flowed around him, domestic and ordinary talk of school lessons and town gossip, reprimands for elbows on the table, and debates about whose turn it was to do the dishes. Finn ate mostly in silence, contributing only when directly addressed. It had been years since he'd sat at a family table like this. Not since before the war, really, when his mother was still alive and his father hadn't yet drunk himself to death. After the meal, as the children cleared the table, Lily walked Finn to the door. "Thank you for today," she said. "Will you be back tomorrow?" Finn nodded. 8 o'clock. "Good," she hesitated, then added, "And Finn, the children can be overwhelming, I know, but they mean well." "They're good kids," he said honestly. "You've done well by them." Something in her expression softened. "I try. Good night, Finn." "Good night, Lily." The walk back to the hotel seemed shorter somehow, despite the ache in his leg and the weariness in his bones. For the first time since the shooting, Finn Ryder went to sleep thinking about the future rather than the past. The days fell into a pattern. Mornings were spent in the cramped office, untangling Lily's creative bookkeeping and setting up a system she might actually maintain. Afternoons were for deliveries, with Chester plodding patiently from address to address while Finn's leg gradually strengthened. The children, initially wary, soon accepted him as part of their daily landscape. Tommy followed him like a shadow whenever possible, peppering him with questions about his life as a lawman. Sarah, shy at first, eventually sought his help with her arithmetic lessons. Michael, determined to prove his maturity, insisted on helping with the heavier deliveries. And Emma, the quietest of the four, sometimes sat silently beside him as he worked on the ledgers, watching with solemn eyes. Lily herself remained something of a mystery. She was unfailingly kind, often funny, and clearly devoted to her adopted brood, but she revealed little about her own past. Finn learned through town gossip that she'd arrived in Silverwood 5 years earlier, already with Sarah in tow, and had opened the bakery with money no one could quite account for. Some speculated she was a widow. Others thought perhaps she'd come into an inheritance. Finn didn't ask. He had his own secrets, after all. As August turned to September and the aspen trees on the mountainsides began to turn golden, Finn moved out of the hotel and into a small cabin on the edge of town. The rent was reasonable, and the owner a widow named Mrs. Holbrook was happy to have a former lawman as a tenant. "Makes me feel safer at night," she told him, handing over the key. "Though I should warn you, the roof leaks when it rains hard." The cabin was rustic but comfortable enough, a main room with a stone fireplace, a small bedroom, and a lean-to kitchen. Finn had few possessions to move in. Some clothes, his gun and gun belt, which he no longer wore but couldn't bring himself to sell, a few books, and a harmonica he hadn't played in years. Lily and the children helped him settle in, bringing a basket of food, curtains for the windows that Emma had sewn herself, and a rag rug for the stone floor that Sarah had made. They turned the simple act of moving into a celebration. with Daniel bringing a jug of hard cider and Lily producing a cake that made Mrs. Holbrook declare she'd never tasted anything so fine. As the evening wound down and the children's energy finally began to flag, Lily found Finn sitting on the cabin's small porch, watching as the first stars appeared in the deepening blue of the sky. "It's a good place," she said, settling beside him on the bench. "It suits you." "It'll do," Finn agreed. "Though I'm not sure Mrs. Holbrook was exaggerating about that leaky roof." Lily laughed, the sound now as familiar to Finn as the scent of baking bread. "I'm sure Tommy would be delighted to help you patch it. He's convinced he's a master carpenter now that Daniel showed him how to hammer a nail." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, listening to the sounds of the children inside, laughing at something Mrs. Holbrook had said. "Why did you really hire me, Lily?" Finn asked suddenly. "You didn't know me from Adam, I could have been anyone." She considered his question seriously. "You needed the job, I needed the help, it seemed simple enough. Most women wouldn't hire a strange man with a limp and a vague story." "I'm not most women," she replied with a small smile. "And your story wasn't that vague. Jenkins at the hotel told me you'd asked about work that didn't require standing long. That suggested injury, not laziness. You carried yourself like a man used to authority, your clothes were trail-worn but good quality, and you were polite but not obsequious. You got all that from our first meeting." "I've learned to be observant," she said simply. "It's a useful skill when you're a woman alone." "But you're not alone," Finn pointed out. "You have the children, Daniel, half the town looking out for you." "Now, yes." She looked away, her profile outlined against the darkening sky. "It wasn't always so." Finn waited, sensing there was more she wanted to say. "I was married once," she finally continued. "He was a banker in Denver, respectable, well-off, admired in the community. And behind closed doors, he was a monster." Finn's hands tightened on his walking stick. "He hurt you." "For 3 years," she confirmed quietly. "I tried to leave twice. He found me both times, brought me back, and made sure I understood the consequences of trying to escape again." "What changed?" "He died," Lily said simply. "Riding accident. Everyone called it a tragedy. I called it salvation. I sold everything, took his money which I considered fair payment for 3 years of hell and left Denver. Found Sarah begging on the streets of a town I passed through, and suddenly I wasn't alone anymore." She smiled slightly. "The others came later, one by one. Each time I thought I couldn't possibly take in another child. Each time I found I couldn't possibly turn them away. And the bakery. My mother taught me to bake. It was the one thing I knew I could do well enough to support us, and bread." She spread her hands in a gesture of simplicity. "Bread is honest. Flour, water, salt, yeast. You can't cheat it or bully it. You have to work with it, respect it. I find that comforting." Finn nodded, understanding more than he could express. "Thank you for telling me." She turned to look at him fully, her eyes reflecting the last light of day. "Now it's your turn, Finn Ryder, fair exchange." He took a deep breath. "I was a deputy U.S. Marshal out of Santa Fe. Before that, cavalry during the war, though I was just a boy, really. Joined up at 16, lied about my age. And the injury, tracking an outlaw named Curtis Blackwell. He'd robbed 3 banks and killed a man in the last one. I caught up to him outside a place called Cimarron. I was too confident, got careless. He shot me from hiding, left me for dead. But you survived. Barely. A Jicarilla Apache hunting party found me, took me back to their camp. Their healer saved my life, though not my career." Finn tapped his leg. "Can't ride more than an hour without pain, can't run worth a damn. Not much use as a lawman if you can't do either. So you came north. Didn't have a destination in mind, just away from the pity, the whispers. Away from the knowledge that Blackwell is still out there somewhere, probably laughing about the marshal he crippled." Lily's hand covered his on the walking stick. "I'm glad your wandering brought you here." The touch of her hand was warm and unexpected. Finn looked down at their joined hands, then up at her face. In the growing darkness, her expression was soft, unguarded. "Lily," he began, not sure what he meant to say. The cabin door burst open, spilling light and noise onto the porch as Tommy came bounding out. "Miss Lily, Mrs. Holbrook says it's time to go home now because it's getting dark," and Michael fell asleep in the chair. The moment broken, Lily withdrew her hand and stood. "Well, we can't have that. Come on, Tommy, help me gather everyone up." As they herded the sleepy children together and said their goodbyes to Mrs. Holbrook, Finn caught Lily's eye across the room. Something had shifted between them, some barrier lowered, though he couldn't have named what it was. That night, alone in his new cabin, Finn took out the harmonica he hadn't played since before the shooting. His fingers remembered the notes even if his heart had forgotten the joy of music. He played softly, a melancholy tune that drifted through the open window into the cool Colorado night. Fall deepened, painting the surrounding mountains in crimson and gold before stripping the trees bare. The air grew sharp with cold, and the first dusting of snow fell in mid-October, melting by noon but promising more to come. Finn's leg ached with the changing weather, but he found it bothered him less than before. Regular work had strengthened it, and he discarded the walking stick except on the worst days. The white lily thrived under the new bookkeeping system Finn had implemented. Lily had a better understanding of her finances now, and had even started setting aside money for the expansion she dreamed of. Daniel had taken on an apprentice, a quiet girl of 14 who had a knack for pastry, and Lily was teaching Emma the basics of bread making. Finn's role had evolved too. He still managed the books and made deliveries, but he'd also become a sort of unofficial guardian for the White Lily's extended family. He walked the children to school on his way to work each morning, repaired broken equipment around the bakery, and made sure the winter's wood was split and stacked behind the building. And if he sometimes found reasons to stay late, sharing supper with Lily and the children, or if Lily sometimes stopped by his cabin with fresh bread that wouldn't keep until morning, neither of them remarked on it. It was on such an evening in early November that everything changed. Finn had stayed to help repair a shelf in the bakery storeroom, and afterward, Lily had insisted he join them for supper. The meal was lively, as always, with the children talking over one another and Lily gently maintaining order. After the dishes were cleared and the younger children sent to prepare for bed, Lily put a record on the hand-cranked phonograph in the corner, a luxury she'd purchased second-hand from a traveling salesman the previous spring. "I haven't heard this one before," Finn commented as the strains of a waltz filled the cozy room. "It was my mother's favorite," Lily said, a hint of nostalgia in her voice. "My father used to dance with her to this in our kitchen when I was a girl." Sarah, helping Michael with a reading lesson at the table, looked up. "Miss Lily loves to dance, but she never has a partner." Lily shot the girl a quelling look. "Sarah, that's quite enough." But Sarah, emboldened perhaps by her near-adult status, continued, "Mr. Ryder, can you dance?" "You could dance with Miss Lily." Finn felt heat rise in his face. "No, I never learned even before." He gestured vaguely at his leg. "Never?" Lily asked, surprised. Finn shook his head. "I went from my father's farm to the war to chasing outlaws." Wasn't much call for dancing in any of those places. "Everyone should know how to dance," Lily declared. "It's never too late to learn." Before Finn could protest, she'd crossed to him and held out her hand. "Come on, I'll teach you." "Lily, I can't, my leg will go slowly," she promised. "Just a simple waltz, nothing fancy." Aware of Sarah and Michael watching with undisguised interest, Finn reluctantly took Lily's hand and allowed her to lead him to the open space near the phonograph. "Hand on my waist," she instructed, placing his right hand at her side. "Other hand holds mine." "Yes, like that. Now the waltz is in 3/4 time. Count with me, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Feeling awkward and too large for the space, Finn tried to follow her lead. His first attempt at the basic step ended with him treading on her foot. "Sorry," he muttered, starting to pull away. "It's fine," she assured him, maintaining her grip on his hand. "Try again. Feel the rhythm of the music. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. This time he managed the basic step without stomping on her, though his movements were stiff and mechanical. Lily was patient, guiding him through the simple box step again and again until he began to get the feel of it. "That's it," she encouraged. "Now try to relax a little. Dancing isn't just about the steps, it's about feeling the music." "I'm more likely to feel the floor when I fall on it," Finn said dryly, but he tried to loosen his rigid posture. As they continued, something unexpected happened. The music seemed to flow through them, and Finn found himself moving more naturally, his body remembering rhythms it had never learned. Lily's smile grew wider as he became more confident, and when he tentatively tried to lead her in a turn, she followed effortlessly. "You're a natural," she said, laughing with delight as he successfully navigated them around the table. Her laugh did something to him, something he couldn't explain. It was like a key turning in a lock he hadn't known existed. The sound of her joy, the feel of her in his arms, the music surrounding them, it all combined into a moment of perfect clarity. He was in love with Lily Lowell. The realization nearly made him miss a step, but his body continued the dance while his mind reeled. How had he not seen it? The way he looked forward to each morning at the bakery, the comfort he found in her presence, the emptiness he felt when they were apart, all signs he'd somehow missed or misinterpreted. "Finn, are you all right?" Lily's voice broke through his thoughts. "You look strange suddenly." He blinked, focusing on her concerned face. "I'm fine, just surprised myself," her brow furrowed. How so? Words failed him. Instead, he pulled her slightly closer and executed a perfect turn, more confident now despite the twinge in his leg. Lily's eyes widened in surprise, then crinkled with pleasure as she laughed again, that same bright, joyous sound that had unlocked his heart. And suddenly, Finn was laughing too, a rusty sound he barely recognized as his own. They were dancing and laughing together, and for the first time since he could remember, Finn Ryder felt truly, completely alive. They danced until the record ended, and then Finn, caught in a moment of rare courage, bent down and kissed her. It was gentle, questioning, giving her every opportunity to pull away. She didn't. Instead, her arms tightened around his neck, and she kissed him back with a fervor that left him breathless. When they finally parted, Lily's cheeks were flushed, her eyes bright. Behind them, Sarah let out a small, delighted gasp, reminding them they weren't alone. "I think," Lily said softly, her eyes never leaving Finn's, "that this dancing lesson is over for tonight. Sarah, please make sure Michael finishes his reading before bed." "Yes, Miss Lily," Sarah replied, her voice tinged with barely suppressed excitement. Later, after the children had gone to bed and they sat together on the small sofa in Lily's parlor, Finn finally found the words he'd been struggling with. "I never thought I'd find this," he admitted, his hand entwined with hers. "After I was shot, I thought my life was over, at least the life I knew. I was just drifting, existing, and then I walked into your bakery." "And now?" Lily asked, her voice steady though her hand trembled slightly in his. "Now I know it was just beginning." He brought her hand to his lips. "I love you, Lily. I think maybe I have since that first day." Her smile was like sunrise after the longest night. "I hoped you did. I've been falling in love with you day by day, watching you with the children, seeing how hard you work despite your pain, the kindness you show to everyone." "Even Mrs. Thornton?" Finn asked with a wry smile, thinking of the demanding woman who still inspected every delivery with critical eyes. Lily laughed. "Even her. Though I notice you always save her delivery for last now." "Strategic planning," Finn admitted. "If she puts me in a foul mood, at least I'm done for the day." They talked long into the night, planning and dreaming. Lily spoke of expanding the bakery, perhaps adding a cafe. Finn admitted he'd been considering asking Sheriff Taylor about taking on some deputy work, nothing that would require fast riding or chasing outlaws, but enough to use his experience and knowledge. "I think that's a wonderful idea," Lily said. "You have so much to offer this town." When Finn finally left in the early hours of the morning, his heart was fuller than it had been in memory. They'd agreed to wait, to give the children time to adjust to the idea of them as a couple before making any permanent arrangements. But the direction was clear, their futures were intertwined now, inseparable. Winter arrived in earnest the following week, with a heavy snowfall that transformed Silverwood into a white wonderland. The bakery became even more popular as people sought warm refuge and fresh bread. Finn's cabin, as Mrs. Holbrook had warned, developed a leak in the roof, but he patched it with Tommy's enthusiastic, if not entirely skilled assistance. Christmas approached, bringing with it preparations and excitement. The children decorated the bakery with pine boughs and ribbons, and Lily baked special treats that sold out almost as soon as they appeared in the display cases. On Christmas Eve, after the bakery closed early, they all gathered in Lily's apartment above the shop. A small pine tree stood in the corner, decorated with paper chains the children had made and a few glass ornaments Lily had brought from her previous life. Presents were exchanged, practical gifts mostly, with a few small luxuries Lily and Finn had secretly arranged. When the children were finally in bed, vibrating with anticipation for the morning, Lily and Finn sat together beside the tree, a single lamp burning low. "I have something for you," Finn said, reaching into his pocket. "Something that couldn't wait until morning." He withdrew a small box and placed it in her hands. Lily opened it with careful fingers to reveal a simple gold ring with a small pearl. "It was my mother's," Finn explained. "The only thing of hers I kept after she died. I've been carrying it with me all these years, not knowing why, really." "Now I know, it was waiting for you." Tears welled in Lily's eyes. "Are you asking what I think you're asking?" "I am." Finn took her hands in his. "Lily Lowell, will you marry me? Will you let me be a father to your children, a partner in your work, a companion for all your days to come?" "Yes," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Yes to all of it." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Finn felt a sense of rightness, of coming home after a long journey. He pulled her close, kissing her with all the love that had been building in him since that first day in the bakery. Later, as snow fell silently outside and the house slept around them, Lily persuaded him to dance with her once more. With no music but the crackling of the fire and their own heartbeats, they waltzed slowly in the small space beside the Christmas tree, their shadows dancing with them on the walls. "Not bad for a man who never danced," Lily murmured against his chest. Finn smiled, pressing a kiss to her hair. "I had a good teacher, and a natural talent, it seems. Only with you," he said softly. "I think I was just waiting for the right partner." As winter gave way to spring, and spring blossomed into summer, the people of Silverwood grew accustomed to seeing the former lawman and the baker together. They married in May, a simple ceremony in the town's small church with the children standing proudly beside them. Sheriff Taylor did indeed take Finn on as a deputy, though one with primarily administrative duties. His experience proved invaluable, and the townsfolk came to respect him not just as Lily's husband, but as a man of integrity and wisdom. The White Lily expanded as Lily had dreamed, adding a cafe section where customers could enjoy coffee and fresh pastries at small tables. Daniel took on more responsibility, becoming a full partner in the business, which allowed Lily more time with her growing family. For on a crisp autumn day, almost exactly a year after Finn had first held Lily in his arms and learned to dance to the music of her laughter, their daughter was born. They named her Hope, for what had brought them together and what they saw in each other's eyes whenever they danced in the kitchen, under the stars, or beside the Christmas tree. And if anyone in Silverwood found it strange to see the once somber deputy marshal now dancing with his wife while their baby slept in a cradle nearby and their adopted children clapped in delight, they kept it to themselves. For everyone could see that Finn Ryder had found something many spent a lifetime seeking: a love that healed old wounds, a family that filled empty spaces, and a woman whose laugh had taught a broken man to move again.